Hi, we're from Pomona High School, and we're going to be discussing today The Bee Meeting by Sylvia Plath. So we just reread the poem, right? And the thing that I wanted to start on today is talking about the persona that is speaking in this poem, right? And I think that we can all agree that this persona, the person speaking, is inherently female, right? This is a girl talking. So let's talk about what clues do we have in the poem that this speaker is female.
Something that I've noticed is in the first stanza, she says sleeveless summery dress and she has no protection. And I feel like in this time period, well, obviously the dress first kind of hints that she's a female, but females like to have protection by their male or significant other. And so because she doesn't have that, you can get that she's a female.
Okay, and you feel like she's unprotected. All right, what else?
I got
Isaiah?
The second line of stanza 4 says, "In a black veil that moves to my face." Women are wearing veils.
Yeah, and she has that fashionable white straw Italian hat, right? Anything else, Dominic?
Not really.
Not really. So we have this female persona, and I think that that is really important to interpreting the poem. So the fact that it's a female, what does that bring out in this poem for us?
Maybe it's someone who's vulnerable.
Does this female persona feel vulnerable? Like she is nude as a chicken neck, right? Which is in stanza 2. I'm nude as a chicken neck. Julie.
Yeah, I was going to say vulnerable, and she seems just constantly confused. Like she's part of this group, but she doesn't really know anything about it. So she just kind of goes along with whatever's happening, which I guess is kind of like a stereotype for women being passive.
Okay, Keegan.
She seems very out of place and insecure. In stanza 2, the first line, right after chicken neck, it says, "Does no one love me?" Because she feels like this nude. She feels out of place. She feels alone. And then over the course of the entire poem, she starts out stanzas with these questions, and she starts out asking all of these questions to try and...
There are a lot of questions, right? And I think that confusion and that insecurity leads us towards a theme in this poem, right? I think that Sylvia Plath is trying to tell us something about being female and what it means to be a woman, right? And so let's talk a little bit more about this confusion and this insecurity, and let's try and find some things from the poem that can help us to understand this overall theme of insecurity as a woman or confusion as a woman. What's Sylvia Plath trying to tell us?
I just found a line.
Okay,
think about that.
Let's go.
So in the third line of stanza 6, it says, "I could not run without having to run forever."
You want to expound?
Yeah, I just think that when she feels like she commits to something, she'll never be able to get out of it.
She has to just keep going,
yeah.
right? Yeah. What else? Dom, anything?
To add on to that, I found in stanza 2, there's now I am milkweed silk. The bees will not notice. They will not smell my fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
It's just adding on to how her out of placeness, how she doesn't really want to.
She does feel out of place, doesn't she? Erin?
I think the repetition of the word fear merely establishes the intensity of her panic and dread, and the image of the community where she's what she's describing is getting more and more frightening every time.
Does this community respect her? No, Keegan?
No, I don't think so. I actually thought something about that line that you just talked about with the fear. I felt like it was almost like she was trying to calm herself down by repeating fear. She was like, fear, fear, and she's trying to say it slower. That's how I read it. And it just felt like she was trying to settle down and go along, because I don't feel like she has a choice to go along. She's just sort of being dragged with this event that's happening.
I like that. She's being dragged along. She doesn't have a choice, does she? And the things that this community is making her do. And they keep dressing her up. You notice that? She changes clothes. So we start with, what's the first outfit she's wearing?
Sleeveless summery dress.
Sleeveless summery dress, right? Which, I don't know much about dresses, but I would assume that if it's a summery dress, it's thin, right? It would be light,
It's not
thin.
very covering.
Yeah, and it's sleeveless, so not a lot of protection. And then what do they dress her in?
Is it
Nude as a chicken.
the
No.
breast? Is that breastplates of cheesecloth?
No,
Is
not
that
yet. In stanza 2, the Secretary of Bees with her white shop smock, right? White shop smock. And then they button it at the cuffs at her wrist and from the slit from her neck to her knees. Sounds fairly all-encompassing, right? Like this is covering this woman's body. And then we get this breastplate of cheesecloth. And then later on, we get the fashionable white straw Italian hat and a black veil that molds to my face. And she's being led by these people, and they're like dressing her up. They're like, she's like a doll that they're putting in clothes. Justin, what is Sylvia Plath trying to help us to see about maybe being female from all these dress up?
It seems like society's just trying to create you into something you're not. Just trying to build on you when you don't want to.
Okay. Any other ideas?
You're given the beliefs you're supposed to have.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it seems like she's being told, this is what you need to be as a woman. Now go do it, right?
I feel like it's like the community's trying to make her conform to what they're doing.
Yeah, it should definitely some conforming going on. Then we get into this whole metaphor of the bees, right? Let's talk about bees. What do we know about bees?
They're really organized.
They are really organized. They have a whole structure within their community. What else do we know about bees?
They're led by a single queen.
Yeah, they're led by a queen. What's the queen's job? To
make more bees.
to make more bees, to give birth, right? That's her job, to make more bees. She kind of leads the hive. What else do we know about bees?
They're scary.
Okay.
Stinger.
Yeah, they can sting you.
Yeah.
What happens when the queen goes away? The hive dies, right? And there's times where if the queen goes away, the hive will leave, and they call it swarming, and they get very passive and timid without the queen, and that's when you can actually go, and you've seen those people that make the beards out of bees and everything. That's when the queen is gone, right? They're able to do that, and then if a queen comes back, a queen or a new queen, she can then take over the hive, and a lot of people who are into keeping bees will look for people that say, oh, I have a swarm in my backyard. They go get the bees, and then they can control them because they put a queen in with them, and now they're my bees, right? I have them now. Put them in a hive. So knowing now about this bee stuff, right, how can we connect this into the poem? Because there is a lot of metaphorical bee things happening in this poem. How can we add to our understanding using this metaphor of the bees?
Their whole process of like getting ready is really systematic, just like the beehive would be.
Okay. Do we think that this female persona that's speaking is the metaphorical queen, or is she a new queen, or the new queen? So she's going to come and supplant an old queen and take over the hive,
Yeah.
and that's why they're molding her and making her. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, she's at first met by the midwife
Mm-hmm.
and the sexton and the rector.
Yep.
Midwife is a person too that helps you give birth.
Yes.
So maybe she's either just another bee that just got born, or the next queen.
The next queen. Maybe she's being trained for this position, which ultimately the job is what?
To make more bees.
Make more bees, to have babies, right? And is that maybe what Sylvia Plath is saying about being a woman? That their job is just to make more people?
It could be.
She doesn't seem very satisfied, though.
No, it kind of reminded me of the situation that she's going through, like marriage, of like when I think of old time, like almost medieval marriage. It's like you're a wife, you stay at home, you make a lot of kids. That's like what you do.
Yes.
That's what this reminded me of.
And what stanza gives you the image of marriage?
There were a couple of them. I thought that, what is that, 8? It's line 45.
Mm-hmm.
That line stood out for me, and the ones directly before that. Is she hiding? Is she eating honey? Where is she at? I was like, okay, so that's like a house. Is she in there? Is she eating? Is she making food? And then she was like, she's very clever. She's old, but must live another year. I thought that was to like raise more children. She has to live because she has to raise children.
Okay.
And then,
how about that white straw hat? The white straw Italian hat in stanza 4 with the black veil that molds to her face. I mean, black is not a normal color we ascribe to marriage, but perhaps this is a symbolic wedding ceremony.
I think like the white hat itself is like her false innocence, and then like the black is kind of the idea of like conformity and making her change to what they want her to be.
Good. Hannah?
I was thinking that when it says a black veil over her face, I think it could symbolize like the removal of her identity upon becoming a wife.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's good, yeah. Because it does. It's molded to her face, so then your face would be more difficult to see. Let's go to the last stanza really quickly. We're running out of time very, very soon. So last stanza 10, says, I am exhausted, pillar of white in a blackout of knives. I am the magician's girl who does not flinch. The villagers are untying their disguises, they are shaking hands. Who is that long white box in the grove? What have they accomplished? Why am I cold? So let's talk about this last stanza and what's happening to this female persona. What's the end game?
it reminds me a little bit of death.
Yeah, death.
Which was contrary to what we said, or contradictory, sorry, to what we said about her being the new queen, because it almost seems like she's being lowered into the ground or put into a box.
And maybe going to be replaced by
replaced.
just another
Yeah.
female persona,
Mhm.
right? We have that long white box in a grove, and I don't know that coffins are necessarily white all that often. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of coffins, but I imagine them as like
beehives are white, aren't they?
Yeah, beehives are white often. Like the commercial beehives that you can buy and put bees in. So that's a great connection. But I do think that that's definitely a coffin, and her being cold. Death, right?
Yeah.
Would be death. How about, what do we make from, and this will just be the last thing we talk about, what do we make? Pillar of white and a blackout of knives. I am the magician's girl who does not flinch.
She's not scared.
She's not scared? But is she really scared?
I think it's
I
like
think it has
more
more
of
to
a...
do with,
Go ahead, Dom.
I think it has more to do with like standards, sort of like if you move at all, so it's sort of like you're in that magician's box with the swords and knives all
Mhm.
around you, and if you move at all from any of these set standards, you're gonna get stabbed.
You're going to get cut. So you're seeing it as that trick where they stick the knives into the box. I saw it as the girls turning on that thing and the magician's throwing the knives at her,
So they
You've
have
seen that?
Some sort of trust in him.
Yeah. But does she seem to trust these people that are doing this stuff to her?
No, but I think that she doesn't flinch because if she flinches, then she thinks she's going to get hurt.
Yeah. And will society accept her flinching?
No.
Isaiah?
I don't think they will. But then I also don't think she trusts them, because the next line says they're untying their disguises. They're shaking hands like they all associate with each other, but they leave her out.
Yeah. And they all have disguises which they can take off. Does she get to take off her
No.
disguise? No. So I think that Sylvia Plath is trying to tell us something about what it means to be a woman and the difficulties that women have to face.
Yeah.
All right.